It's a fantasy for some women to one day get plastic surgery, a complete physical overhaul by some of the country's top surgeons. They believe they would feel more confident because they are more attractive. Hello, I'm Doris McMillan, and welcome to Excellent Living with Cheryl Martin. Well, the popular television program Extreme Makeover was known for making that dream come true when it selected either a man or woman to go under the knife on each episode. It was amazing to see the transformations. Cheryl told us last week that it is possible for each woman to experience her own extreme makeover, free of charge, when she follows God's principles. But this makeover is internal. Her first point was, give God your heart. Let's listen as Cheryl Martin wraps up this teaching.
What he wants is for us as women, whether we are single or married, for the top tier of our hearts to always belong to God, that there is never a rival for his affection. Why is it? He's the only one who's going to be with us from beginning to end. He is the only one who said, I will never leave you or forsake you. Some of us have experienced a man walking out. He's the only man I know who has died for me. The only one. And so what he says in return, I have proven to you my love. I died for you. And in order for me to accomplish the makeover, I need to know that there is no rival for my affection in your heart. So if I'm going to prove to God that I love him, that means there are certain things that I'm going to do. I'm going to think about him as much as I can, which means meditating on him day and night. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to spend quality time reading his love letter. You never get tired of reading love letters. Some of us have love letters 30 years ago. Junior's been gone, but we still want to read the love letter of how it used to be. He wants us to read his love letter, the Bible, on a regular basis, because that's him telling us how he views us. So give God your heart and let him love on you and tell you the great plans he has. And I've discovered that can take care of a lot of our issues as women, because that leads me to the second principle, and that is, for the extreme makeover to take place, it's important for us to see ourselves as God sees us. In other words, that we as women allow our self-esteem to be based on what he says about us, not a man, not our mother, not what O Magazine says, or Essence, or Cosmopolitan. Why? Because in our culture, if you read any of these magazines, there is an opinion about how we should be as women. But I prefer going to the manufacturer's handbook, because when you get a new car, if you really want to know how to operate that car at the optimum level, it comes with a manufacturer's handbook. So if we want to have the proper view of ourselves as women, it's what God says about us. Maybe someone told you you're not as pretty as your sister, or what happened to you, or you're going to be just like your mother, who never got married and had 3 children out of wedlock. You can either choose to believe that or what the Word of God says, because truth is always what God says. It's not what I think. It's not how I feel. It really isn't what I see. Truth is always what God says. How do I know that? Jesus referred to Lazarus as being asleep. Everyone else was calling him dead. So it's important that no matter what our circumstance is, honey, it's not what you say. I want to know what God has to say about it. You're saying I can't afford a home as a single mother, but that's not what God says. You said my children won't be able to go to college because no one in my family has gone to college, but that's not what God says. When I wanted to go to one of the top universities in the country, my mother says, we don't have the money, but we know God. And so we began to talk to God. Why? Because it was God who had placed that dream in my heart to be a broadcaster. This God is so concerned about dreams, some of them that we don't want to articulate to other people because we're afraid they're going to laugh at us. But I learned as a child, the age of these young girls here, I was constantly talking to God about my dreams because my mother had told me I can talk to God about anything. So as I was walking to school, I remember walking to kindergarten, passing my father's barber shop. Along the way, developing a relationship of talking to God. All right. And I watched God do what others said couldn't be done, and the university gave me so much money, it would have cost my parents more for me to stay at home and go to college in Houston and be a commuter student. So don't tell me what God cannot do. These principles work. So it is so important to see ourselves. I have had self-esteem issues, and one of the tapes that I have here, Becoming a Woman of Confidence, I talk about, again, this was something I went to God about. Because I had 7 brothers. I was not the typical young woman. I wanted to be dainty, soft, not have an opinion. I really wanted to be that kind of woman, that I didn't already know what I wanted to do on the date and the next date and the next date. I tried to change my personality. It worked for about a day. Then the real Cheryl came out. And I remember going in my room asking God, why am I like this? Why can't I be like the other young ladies who are constantly being asked out? Why am I strong? Going to him about my self-esteem issues. Why am I like this? And he whispered to me and again said, for the assignment that I've given you, I have given you the personality. I know what I'm doing, in other words. He knew I would be in a male-dominated field. He knew one day I would be hosting Lead Story with 3 aggressive men on the panel with me. I didn't know that. A docile personality would not have worked. Being soft would not have been effective. Each one of you, God has crafted you and given you your set of gifts and abilities, whether it's 1 or 10, whatever he has called you to do as a king's daughter, he has equipped you. You've got to use what's in your hand and fully develop it. Not looking to the left or right or wondering why she's prettier, got a better voice. That's not wrong questions. God doesn't compare you with anyone else. You are a designer's original. He told me one time, Cheryl, your assignment is simply to pull out of you what I've placed in you. That's all. And maximize what I've given you. Number 3, do whatever God tells you to do. In other words, you make a conscious decision on purpose to obey God in every area of your life. If you make this decision before you are faced with a dilemma, it'll be less complicated. Not what your neighbors are doing, not what your favorite television show, Desperate Housewives, not what it's espousing, but doing whatever God tells you to do. I was blessed this morning reading Jeremiah 8:23, and it says, "Obey me, and I will be your God, and you will be my people. Walk in all the ways I command you, that it may go well with you." See, a lot of times it's not the devil on our back. The devil is trying to block. No, it says right here that if we walk in all of his ways, it will go well. There are always prerequisites. God has standards. God, I want a blessing. God bless me. Are you obeying him? Is it your goal to obey him in every area of your life? Not the areas that you're comfortable with. I'm talking about those uncomfortable areas like refusing to have sex outside of marriage. I'm talking about in that area, for example. I'm talking about not cheating on your job by getting there 15 minutes late and leaving 15 minutes early. And they are aware that you are a believer because of the scriptures on your computer screen. They know it that way, not because of your work ethic. See, the Word of God is very practical. It comes down where we live. And God is saying, in order for you to experience the extreme makeover and be the woman I've created you to be, you must do what I say. Esther had a hard decision to make. See, obedience can be hard. It sounds easy, but it's not, because our flesh, we don't want to do it. I find my biggest problem is my flesh, not necessarily the devil. It's getting Cheryl out of the way. Because we're like, I'm not going to do that. We'll say in a minute, I know what the Word of God says, but. I know what the Word says, but. Esther was queen, living very comfortably, luxuriously. But her cousin came to her and said, our people's lives are at stake. You're going to have to go before the king. Who knows if this wasn't the purpose for you being here? And you know what that says to me? Whenever God blesses us, whenever God puts us in a position of prominence, whenever God has blessed us financially, and we have more than the person down the street, it's not just for us to be comfortable. God has given us our positions. All of life is about him. It's not to boost our ego, for us to walk around with a sense of pride. God had one reason for elevating Esther: to deliver his people. This is why we always have to renew our minds. That's the way the culture is. I have my house on the hill, my 2 luxury cars. When a woman's mind has been renewed and she lives with a sense of purpose, she's always keeping her ear close to the ground, listening and saying, God, why have you given me this opportunity? I was very well aware that God didn't give me my opportunity at BET for ego purposes, for me to heighten my visibility. I knew, God, you have opened this door for your glory. And since I've left BET, the Lord said to me, that job wasn't about you, because there are people who will want to hear what you have to say simply because they respected your work when you were at BET. So all of life is about God. All of life. If he has blessed you with more, it's so if your sister is in need, look, I've got something for you. Your job doesn't pay you as much. I have an abundance. So he's going to bless you through me. That's why he gave me my good government job. Not to see you on the road struggling and your lights are about to be turned off. And I'm going to sit there and judge why your lights are being turned off. Not when he has given me the wherewithal to help you. Number 4, trust God explicitly. Not only do what he says, do you really, 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 really trust God? We say that, but the true test of whether or not we really trust God will be manifested in how we live, what we say, and what we do. That determines if we really trust God, because when we trust God, we will always play by his rules. We are willing to draw the line where he draws the line. And I really believe, the Lord spoke this to my heart years ago, that he is really waiting to prove himself mighty in our generation if he could find a group of people who would just trust him explicitly, who take his word, take the word of God and say, I stand on it and I believe it. That settles it. Earlier, Sister Marla mentioned Mary, the mother of Jesus, and she's one of my favorite women in the Bible because she trusted God explicitly, even though she didn't even understand how it could be done. But the difference is, once she had heard from God, and that's the key, she said in Luke 1:38, I am the Lord's servant. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm your servant, and according to your will, O God, be it unto me. I trust you. You didn't ask me to figure it out. You simply told me to obey you and to trust you. Why? Because when we look at God's track record, he cannot lie. His middle name is faithful. Who wouldn't want to trust a God like this? When he tapped me on the shoulder a little over 3 years ago and said, I want you to leave your job, I didn't hesitate. I didn't know which doors were going to open. I just had the assurance with a number of key people in my life praying to make sure this was God's timing. I knew all along at some point he was going to call me to do what I was doing. I just didn't know when. Why? Because I knew he had always been orchestrating my life. And I look back at all the wonderful doors that God has opened when I took the step of faith and said, Lord, I trust you. Because when I look back over my life, despite the pain in my life, despite the hurts in my life, the disappointment, one thing I can say, you have always been faithful. Always. I have no reason to doubt you now. The trust in an absolute sovereign God. And finally, the 5th principle for becoming the woman God created you to be: live to please him alone. When you know who you aim to please, it makes life a whole lot easier. When your priorities are right. You know, one day I was walking as a form of exercise and meditating on God, and this concept occurred to me. I said, you know what? If I woke up every day consumed with one thing, I'm going to please God today, and have my allegiance to him and him only, it's going to make a lot of my other choices easier. You know why? Because I'm going to run every choice through that grid.
Yes, yes, excellent.
I'm about to go here. Would this please God?
Excellent, excellent.
I'm about to give Mary a piece of my mind. Would that please God? What I'm thinking right now, is this thought pleasing to God? For those who are struggling with sneaking and looking at pornography on the internet, if you were to ask yourself, what I'm doing right now, nobody sees this but God and me, would you invite him to sit next to you? That would eliminate a lot of the issues in our life, because I live to please him. It really doesn't matter what you think about me. It doesn't matter the choice. I don't know why it doesn't really matter. Because I have set my face like flint. And you know who perfectly modeled this? Jesus. I love reading the book of John because he said, I have one agenda. I came here for one reason, to glorify God. He said, I only say the things the Father tells me. I only do the things the Father tells me. And when he got ready to go, he says, Father, I have glorified your name. I never lost sight of why I came here. He didn't have an attitude, look, I'm equal with God. I think today I want to do my own thing. Every day he was in step with the Master's plan. And every person scripturally that God used in a mighty way, Moses, Joseph, Daniel, Deborah, they followed these principles. They got the self-esteem issue right. They started focusing on God and not their inadequacies. They began to trust God implicitly. They did exactly what he told them to do. And see, I love this because the Lord told me one day, Cheryl, you don't even have to think. I just want you to obey me. You don't have to use your brain. If you wake up and I tell you to walk right, walk right. Yeah. Go left, go left. And he says, you know what? If every day you practice doing that, your steps are going to lead you to the important people I want you to meet. Every door that I want open because you have been consistently consumed with obeying me, they are going to open. Because you have made the main thing the main thing. So I want to challenge you and encourage you tonight. You've already been on that path to make pursuing God and following these principles your number one priority. You may have to walk a lonely road at times. There will be people in the church that say, honey, it doesn't take all that. People said that to my parents, rearing 8 children. And I watched my parents tune out the negativity from other Christians because they had a higher standard. If you want that extreme makeover, in the television show, those people were willing to leave their families, do whatever was necessary, go under the knife because they had a dream of what they could be. And God is saying, when I look at you, I see the final product. But you've got to work with me. You got to pull off some things, renew the mind, and make a commitment before you get your bags packed and you go on the journey. Lord, I trust you. I'll obey you. I believe that if I do life your way, that I never have to compromise your principles to get your best. And that if we compromise, it wasn't his package. So I pray that I've encouraged you tonight. No matter what you're dealing with, no matter what you're dealing with, Experience that extreme makeover.
That was conference speaker and former news anchor Cheryl Martin sharing principles for becoming the woman God created you to be. If you'd like a single CD of this teaching, Extreme Makeover, for just $9, it would make a great gift to encourage that friend. Visit us online at excellentliving.org. That's excellentliving.org, and click on Resources and select that title. Shipping is free. Or, if it's more convenient for you, you can mail us your order request and pay by check. I'll share Excellent Living's address in just a moment. We appreciate your prayers and financial support to keep this ministry thriving and expanding. If you've never contacted Excellent Living, but you enjoy this broadcast and see its benefits, we'd love to hear from you. This program is sustained by donations from friends and partners like you. We ask that you give whatever amount you can with a heart of joy. You can send your tax-deductible donation and CD orders to Excellent Living, Post Office Box 15285, Chevy Chase, Maryland. That's P.O. Box 15285, Chevy Chase, Maryland 20825. Thanks in advance for partnering with us. If you'd like prayer for what appears to be an impossible situation, we're here for you. Just email your request to prayer@excellentliving.org. That's prayer@excellentliving.org. Or you can call our prayer line by dialing 832-766-1695. That's 832-766-1695. We appreciate you tuning in to Excellent Living, and remember to spread the word about this enriching program.